Well, welcome, James. We're together again.
We're back.
We're back. How does it feel? Does it feel like it
This
was
feels
yesterday?
just like yesterday, Doug. We haven't changed a bit since we were
We,
working together on stage. What 10 years ago? I look exactly the same. You look exactly the same, if not younger and smarter.
I, well, I think that's the moisturizing that we're
I,
doing.
or the filter. Yeah, one or the other.
we uh we will drop in the comments the filters we're using in case somebody wants to
Hmm.
replicate that. That is part
Yeah.
of the value add
You know the
of
middle aged suburban dad filter, highly underrated.
yeah. And the beauty
Check it
of it
out.
is it's not just from the face up. It applies in all facets. So, uh, look, super excited that we're getting together. We're starting a podcast, aren't we?
This is crazy.
How's it
Who
feel?
does this?
Well, I think
It feels
everybody
a.
does it these days.
I'm excited, Doug. I'm also like, hey, everybody does podcasts, so what the heck? What are we doing here, Doug?
Yeah.
Why is anybody going to listen to this?
Well, let me take a
Besides
stab
the
at answering
besides the
that.
fact that you're on it, Doug.
Well, I think it's a combination of two funny guys. That's never been done before. No, nobody does that. Um,
Nobody.
look, in all seriousness, James, I fundamentally believe that there is a wealth of experience and talent that has come out of the Midwest, especially in healthcare. And I think those stories need to be told. And I think this is a wonderful
I agree.
opportunity. And I'd be curious what your perspective is, but I don't see this story being told in a way that is helpful and meaningful for other people that are going through the same journey that we've been on.
I agree. I think it's told over coffees, one on one,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how you and I got going on this. Is just realizing, man, there's a lot we learned in the couple decades that we've been leading growth, helping grow companies. No one's really sharing this, and we learned some hard lessons too. It wasn't all
Yeah.
unicorns and rainbows. There was some tough stuff too, and I found in the one-on-one conversations there's a willingness, there's a hunger to talk about that and what growth looks like and where what's good growth and sustainable growth and what's sort of the crazy stuff that we're seeing even in like the private equity world. There's that
Oh
spectrum, and
yeah.
I found that there's a hunger to talk about this stuff, but nobody's talking about it in a macro level, or certainly on a podcast, as best I can tell.
Well, I think we're going to fill that gap. I'm pretty excited. Let's talk about the name. So we've been bantering about names for this podcast, and we landed on the counterweight. How does that strike
Counterweight,
you? The
yeah, like
counterweight.
counter. Like I think of
That's
like
right.
yeah, balance. I
Yeah.
think of
Like duck and weave.
yeah, Bob and
Yeah.
yeah, sort of the counterweight, the counterpunch, opposing when things are in opposition and yet need to work symbiotically.
Got to find
So yeah, man,
balance.
I think you're onto something.
Well, and we talked about this as we were doing our prep. I think one of the things that we want to explore and both unique to healthcare, but also to some degree is a reality in many other businesses. But there is this tension, this counterbalance between the concept of mission and margin. And I think the people we're going to talk to, at least initially, the people who've grown up on the growth side, on the sell side, they very much are living in the margin. How do we produce more growth? How do we produce more revenue? How do we get more clients? But I suspect that they are there because of the mission. And I think that's going to be a really cool thing to tease apart and talk about in these conversations.
100%. And that's why a lot of us are in this industry is we believe in the mission. It's personal. Healthcare is personal. Everyone has a story. Your personal health, your family's health, your parent, your grandparent, your kid. It's personal. The work that we
Yeah.
do to help grow these companies ultimately impacts human beings, and that's pretty cool. So it's easier to get up and out of bed in the morning and go after that, and yet there is that tightrope of wanting to grow aggressively and pursue growth, and yet also serve the broader mission of improving health of human beings and communities and providers. And how do we create uh, more of a symbiotic relationship with payers and providers and consumers and all of those things. And so I have felt that tension over the years. And I remember when I was working with some faith-based health systems, the CEOs, who were oftentimes clergy members, would say, no margin, no mission.
Yeah.
No margin, no mission. In other words, we've got to have margins. We got to have healthy margins. We got to have growth that's positive, or else we can't serve that mission. So I think there is a delicate. I don't want to use the word balance. It's maybe more of a rhythm. I don't know. It feels like a tightrope at times. And how do we, as growth leaders, walk that tightrope and stay on the tightrope, right?
Yeah.
And some of us have learned some lessons there over the years. So excited to jump into that. And I know just hearing from others, their journeys, like what have they learned, what have they seen. I think there's a lot of wisdom and value out there to share.
And what are they grappling with, right? Well, I mean,
Mm.
what are the things that are still challenges, even given where they may or may not be in their respective career? Why don't we take a turn for a moment? I'd be curious, James, what brought you into healthcare originally? What's your why statement, and why are you still connected into this space?
Yeah, well, at the time that I joined the healthcare technology industry, I was in my early 20s and I really didn't understand it. I joined because someone
So
invited
late
me.
2000s, right?
Oh,
2010,
I wish.
2015.
Early, yeah, sorry. Back up a little bit. I'm not going to say the date, but it was definitely it was earlier than that. And so I joined as a entry level. I kind of came into the industry as an entry level sales trainee, and I really didn't understand how important it was. And I think for me, my wake up moment, my why moment came when I was assigned to help with a client implementation, and we were there to provide support. And I spent the entire shift with an ER emergency room nurse. And at the end of the shift, she turned, and this is just, they had just rolled out the technology, the electronic health record, which is a relatively new thing, definitely a new thing for them. And she turned to me and said, "Well, what do I do now?" And I said, "Nothing. You're done. You go home."
Yeah.
And she couldn't believe it because her life before that day was spending 3-4 hours on documentation, trying to remember what she did throughout her shift, and she didn't have to do that anymore. And that was kind of my wake up. I was like, wow, we're really making people's lives better. Not to mention the patients and families that nurse and the staff interact with. So that was what my why moment. And I've been privileged to be a part of that industry for now over 20 years. How
Yeah. I
about you,
mean,
Doug? What was it for you?
well, so I don't know if I ever told you this. When I was in high school, and I was thinking, actually, even before that, when I was in elementary, uh, I would tell my grandmother, my granny cat, one, when I get older, I'm gonna make enough money to buy you a house. And she would chuckle, say, "How are you gonna do that?" So I'm gonna be a doctor. And and I remember in high school, as I thought about why am I going to go to college, what am I going to college for? It's like, well, I'm going to go to med school. I'm going to be a doctor. And look, truth be told, probably the main reason I wanted to be a doctor, I hate to say this now, is I didn't want to do what my dad was doing. He worked at a paper plant. Um, I didn't want to be in sales, and I thought that's what everybody else did. By the way, really odd turn of events that I've spent most of my career in sales. And what I saw from the people in the community are doctors were respected, they were prestigious, they really helped people. People sought them out, and they lived well, right? They financially did pretty well. By the way, I didn't become a doctor, unfortunately.
Still time.
Still time.
Still
That's
time.
true. I tell
Mm,
myself that,
yeah.
right? You can always reinvent.
Always continuous learning.
That's right. But I did get a degree in biology because I remain true to my fascination around the human body, the things that impact our health. Um, but it wasn't really until I made my way to Cerner and really saw the impact. Well, actually, first really fully understood the fragmentation and the disconnect across the health system overall, and then saw the impact that technology had in some form or fashion creating connectivity where there was not in
Mm.
the health system. And then, much like what you talked about being in the hospital, seeing people, hearing stories of people whose lives were better, who had an emergent event that was prevented because there were information at the fingertips of the healthcare professional, that were intervened when they were in their household because an alert went off a device that got to a nurse who called them, whose lives were saved because there wasn't a conflict in medications. Those things were powerful, and it impacted me. And I haven't been able to shake the value of seeing that type of impact on the world. Um, and I'm excited to continue to be in the healthcare space.
Man, that's awesome. I did not know that you majored in biology. I didn't know that part of your background and your aspirations to be a doctor. I, on the other hand, was a little bit like the Doc Hollywood movie quote, where it's like, "Hey, I always wanted to be a doctor. It was just the science part I had trouble with." For
Which is
me,
really a
I
small
was
part of it.
small. Yeah,
Yeah.
so political science and psychology major. Here I am in healthcare, technology, and obviously sales and growth related roles. And it's interesting. Like I would bet, and we can certainly ask this with our guests, of how many of them ever thought they would end up in a sales or growth leadership type of role.
Mm.
I bet it will be very few that thought of thought they would
I
end
love
up
that.
there, and yet so glad to be here at that
Yeah.
intersection, to be at an intersection where there's a lot of problems still. Even since now it's been over 20 years since I helped that nurse through her shift, and there's still a tremendous amount of friction, waste, wasted resources, bad processes in healthcare. There are a ton of problems, and it's not going to get solved by just putting more people through training and education programs. And we do want and need more providers. Um, I don't think it's solely going to be on the. We don't want it to be solely on the payers to figure it out. We gotta bring technology to the table. So I love it because there's an opportunity to make change. There's still a ton of problems to go solve.
Well, I'm excited about the stories we're going to go tell. I'm super excited about what we're going to learn from the people we talk to. I think you would probably echo this, but I know that we both feel like there's still so much that we have to learn about our chosen profession, about how we can be better leaders, how we can be better about engaging clients and taking them along on journey. And I'm really jazzed about hearing different perspectives about where that's been successful. Um, well, I think we're going to bring this to a close. This is the first session. I'm excited about the journey we're on, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, for sure. Let's close it down here for today. In terms of goals, my goal, and this comes from a colleague of mine who says this often, is my hope is that the people who listen to this will make different mistakes than I made.
Yeah.
We will all make mistakes. We're here to grow. We're here to learn. But I think in bringing this group together and having these guests and having them share their real stories, and including the good, the bad, the ugly, so that folks can learn from that wisdom. So that's one of my goals here. We'll do a quick shout out for the sponsor. So this is sponsored with in-kind sponsorship by the upper right corner So if you need help with growth strategy, go to market, go to network, you've had some M&A or you're having M&A activity, you're trying to bring the team together, the strategy together, interim leadership, fractional leadership, and so on, give the upper right corner a look, www.theupperrightcorner.com. Check it out.
Fantastic. Wholeheartedly endorse it. All right. Well, thank you, James. This was great.
Cheers.